I want to show you how you can use asset rules in Connect Data Services. Now, I'm looking here in the Asset Explorer at a list of assets, specifically temperature sensor assets for different stations and different real-time temperature feeds. But the interesting thing is that I did not build these assets myself. They did not get synced from an on-premises AVEVA Pi server. I created them automatically from my streams using an asset rule. I'm going to show you exactly how we do this. So under asset rules, I have an asset rule created, and the way that this actually works is this is able to look at streams within the sequential data store, do pattern matching on them, and intelligently create different assets by mapping certain streams to different property values, creating asset names, and the like. And all in real time, as new streams are added, new assets will be created. Let me show you a bit of how we do this. So here I have an asset rule. If I go ahead and take a look at what's inside it, you can see I've specifically selected an example stream that has a pattern that is indicative of several other streams that I want to match on. And what I've gone through is I've captured different sections. I've said this first token right here, I'm calling source, which is the text that precedes the delimiter underscore. Next, there's a delimiter. And then finally, everything that remains is my measurement. And I'm capturing the source as the first piece, the measurement as the second. Yes, this looks similar to what we did in our stream metadata rule, but in this case, it's going to use these tokens to actually create assets and map these temperatures to properties of those assets so that I can be in my Asset Explorer and toggle between multiple different assets and see their different temperature readings. So the way it works, I created that asset rule. Once I've selected an example stream and I've broken it up using its different naming conventions, and just to show you how we can actually do this, if I hit undo capture, I can either specify letters until the end, letters by number, or by type, or by string literals. I can have multiple different tokens here, multiple different ones, do lots of different matchings. Go ahead and cancel there. Let's go back. Let's edit this one again. Now that I've created all these, I can hit next. What it's going to do is it's going to say, now that you've extracted the tokens, how do you want to map them to values? My first piece, the source, yes, I want to leave that exactly as it is right here. Now my measurement, I'll have that be my temperature. And when I go ahead and create my actual assets, instead of just using the actual literal AccuWeather, I want to call it my AccuWeather web service. Instead of calling my asset just MQTT1 WISE 4220, I want to call it my 4220 IoT module. This allows me to actually take these incoming tokens and actually give them brand new names. Again, very useful if the goal of creating assets is not just to do a one-to-one copy of what's in the tag naming convention or what's in the stream naming convention. You want to actually expand on them with more human-friendly names and human-friendly labels. Here's your ability to do this. Or you could, of course, just use existing token values and it'll automatically break it into tokens and use those. So once I've gone ahead and created my mapping rules for how I break apart that stream name, next, again, I can specify how I want to do mappings, either use existing values or give it new ones. And then finally, I get to the asset constructor here, where I can specify what I want my asset ID to be, the asset name, the description. I can map metadata for the data source, the sensor type. I can just make all of these, however many that I want. These are going to be new properties of my assets. And then, of course, as my properties, my measurement, everything here is going to be actually mapped as a property. So that it'll show up as a real-time property instead of the static metadata. So you'll expect to see that new assets will be created that start with asset rule asset, and then the source, have a description, and have this metadata, and then have temperature as their property. And then when I hit next, it goes ahead and does a preview of this, and it scans through all of my streams that would match this rule. Now, in this case, it's gone ahead and finished because I've already finished processing all my streams. I've already created all of these. But the interesting thing is, as new streams get added, it will continue to run this rule. So if new temperature sensors get added that match that naming convention, it will go ahead and create new assets. So at the end of the day, the way to think about asset rules is these allow you to leverage the fact that some of your streams have useful naming conventions within them. And what you're able to do is you're able to take those naming conventions and use multiple asset rules to extract the different information from those naming conventions and map those to become the names and metadata and properties of assets that you create with asset rules. So if you don't have assets already being synced up to the cloud from an on-premises AVEVA Pi server, and if you don't necessarily build those out yourself using add asset or via the API, you can use asset rules under data management asset rules to build your assets automatically using those naming conventions you find in your streams. And you can have multiple different asset rules. In my case right here, I could just hit add rule, create new asset rule. And if I wanted to use an existing asset type, I could, or I could just hit any and hit continue. And again, you can pick any of the streams that you want. A stream that has a good naming convention. You can see, for instance, one of those temperature ones. You pick any of those streams that has a good naming convention, you follow those rules exactly as we showed, and you're able to use those to define which tokens are going to become which parts of your asset. So how you can use asset rules, again, to create that much more easy to work with data so that the streams that are being synced up to the cloud are indeed analytics ready and are much more of a self-service data set for your users of the cloud portal than if they were just remaining as streams. Because again, if I go to data management and sequential data store, a user could of course find the streams here. They can go through and search for them. If I go through and look for that NOAA, for instance, I can find my NOAA temperature stream. However, if I want to see associated metadata, if I want to do asset-to-asset comparisons and see which other temperature sensors I also have, it's much more easy for my users to explore this data in the concept of assets, exactly what I've done here. And asset rules are an amazing way of building these assets for you automatically and allowing it to scale, such as new temperatures or new streams are brought in, it's going to continue to create new assets. So again, just want to do a quick walkthrough of how you can practically use asset rules with your data that's being synced up from on-premises into the cloud. Thank you.